Help support Friendo Club by going to patreon.com/Steven Larson or clicking join at youtube.com/Steven Larson. Access to bonus episodes, question threads for the Going In Raw podcast, and entry to our monthly wrestling predictions challenges. Join the Friendo Club today. Hey, Friendo, Steve here.
And Larson.
And welcome back to... What are you drinking over there?
It's the count out tradition, isn't it? Did it last week. I'm going to do it now. Or a couple weeks ago, actually. It looks like urine. It's not.
Okay. Yeah. It's
Celsius.
Like one of them energy drinks, right?
It is. And something, again, it's half a can, rest water. I just need a little pep.
To each their own, man. Anyways, this is Count Out. This week we're going to talk about, given that we're in the middle of, and we're coming down to the finish here, the Who Killed WCW series. As much as you and I like to blame those damn dirty executives at Turner, I think probably a pretty good case could be made.
Yeah.
Boy, oh boy,
Yeah.
There were many times in WCW where it could have been boiled down to the creative because they dropped the ball on so many occasions with so many things. You know, WCW, the number of times, and we've got 10 of them here, where they had magic on their hands, just absolutely bottled up that magic, and then they just let it piss away like in your jar right there, dude.
This was that magic.
That was the magic right there. Look at you, like Jeff Hardy. So anyways, that's what we're going to talk about today. Our 10 times WCW dropped the ball. Let's go ahead and dive right into it, Larson.
Let's get after it.
Number 10.
10.
NWO Bloat. Man, oh man.
Yeah, this was a huge one because, of course, NWO started with the original 3 members, Bash at the Beach, 1996. You had Scott Hall.
Yeah.
You had Kevin Nash.
Correct.
And you had Hollywood Hogan.
Correct.
And then, I don't know, within a few months, so by the end of 98, or is this beginning of 98, sorry. So about 18 months later, you had Ted DiBiase, Giant, NWO Sting, Six, Kyle Petty, Vincent, Miss Elizabeth, Nick Patrick, Eric Bischoff, Buff Bagwell, Michael Wall Street, Bubba Rogers, Scott Norton, Randy Savage, Dennis Rodman, Conan, Mr. Perfect, and Rick Rude. How many names is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So about one new member every month.
Dude, even by the end of, by the end of 96, like they started with 3 by the end of 96, a mere, 5 months later? They're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, including the NWO ref Nick Patrick.
And NWO NASCAR driver Kyle Petty.
Was Kyle Petty already? Oh my God, yeah, he was an early adopter.
Yeah, he was pretty early.
So yeah, it seemed to be in one of the stories that we've seen talked about elsewhere, not necessarily in WCW, although maybe Booker T alluded to it. If you weren't running with the NWO backstage, on screen, you had kind of more of a difficult time getting any screen time. I mean, they had an entire NWO pay-per-view called Sold Out. Granted, there were non-NWO members on that pay-per-view, which didn't make any sense.
It didn't make any sense. Like the whole idea that they wanted to splinter off the NWO to their own promotion.
Yeah. Like
it was going to be, the NWO was supposed to be their own promotion, but then do you have NWO members fighting NWO members?
I mean, at a certain point, I don't know. Like, what kind of paperwork would that require? I don't know. It's funny because it was kind of a cool idea. Like, okay, NWO takes over. They then rebrand WCW as NWO, and it includes NWO members and WCW members, and they get the short shrift because of the NWO.
Yeah, but that's different than 2 separate organizations.
That doesn't make any sense. Yeah,
that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, again, one of those things. Just the concept of NWO as its own brand, drop ball.
Yeah. Well, because it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make sense.
What did you like? Where do you think the NWO should have gone? Full on corporate brand, or just remain sort of in the parking lot with people. They should have sold those shirts exclusively in parking lots.
I agree. I think as disruptors is when they were at their strongest.
Yeah.
You know, and there's certain names, even the 11 that joined through the end of 1996, I'd be like, all right, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, I get it. I get why they would join. Like, it makes sense if the NWO was trying to stack the deck in their favor. They'd have a referee in their pocket. Makes sense.
Who's the first one that didn't make sense?
Well, the Giant didn't make much sense. He just feuded with Hogan.
Yeah, kind of redundant.
DiBiase didn't make much sense. I know they
Money
tried
Guy.
to kayfabe it.
Money Guy.
I know they tried to kayfabe it as Money Guy. He's a Money Guy still.
Him and Vincent make sense.
Six makes all the sense. X-Pac.
Yeah, click.
Yeah, that makes all the sense.
You know, hey, let me throw this out there really quick. This is a complete tangent, but not really. You know how Hogan in all the promos was doing his brother voice? You remember like his little interview and promo in like 93 in New Japan where he's just Hogan voice?
Mm-hmm.
Would it have been weirder and cooler if he was just that? Because he had that like cocky ego thing going in New Japan where he would just talk matter of fact, but it's still kind of Hogan.
Yeah, that'd be kind of strange. I don't know.
It'd be weird, right? Understated Hogan.
Yeah, I don't know how that would go over. Let's see. Other names that probably didn't join in 96.
Bubba Rogers and Mike Wall Street.
Yeah, I was getting to them.
Yeah.
Buff Bagwell even.
Bagwell in 96. Ended up being a solid value pick, though, huh? Oh, come on. Bagwell was a solid value pick. For his work later on with Steiner? Absolutely. Come on, man. Anyways, let's go ahead. We're not going to agree on this one.
Scott Norton, yeah, because he was the bridge between NWO in the States and NWO Japan. Made sense.
Bro, do you know the next thing on my list of things to get that have been spray painted?
Oh, the WCW title with NWO on it?
No. I could do that right now if I wanted to.
Yeah.
No, from that cool NWO Japan vignette.
Oh, yeah.
The old school IWGP title, and they had like a reverse stencil on it.
Yeah.
That was sick.
That was pretty cool.
I want that NWO anyway.
It's pretty cool. It was pretty cool. But, you know, like by the time 97, especially 98 rolled around, when the NWO came out to drop a promo, you had like 20 people in the ring. It was too much.
Oh, it was way too much.
It was too many people. It didn't. Yeah. It watered down the brand to a degree because it wasn't that exclusive of a club anymore.
It's like you and I, right? We're just two guys. It'd be like if we had like 3 YouTube channels between the two of us. It's too much.
Too much.
Water down the brand.
Water down the brand. Like I water down my energy drink here.
Let's move on, man. Number 9.
9.
Not pushing Raven. What about me? What about Raven?
So I looked. I remember him winning the U.S. title. Do you remember how long he had the U.S. title?
Wasn't it like a day or a week or something like that?
It was one day. He won it on a pay-per-view. The next Nitro, he lost it to Bill Goldberg.
So I think he was doing a thing where
he beat DDP for the pay-per-views during his feud with DDP.
Yeah, but didn't he steal it? And because the only reason I bring this up is because I remember I was watching. I don't think it was in this episode, but it was something about Raven, and it was like he had only had. They said he's only had rightful ownership of the U.S. title for one day, and then he had to put it up against Goldberg, and he lost.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But I think he had like stolen it from DDP, and he was like walking around with it or something like that.
That makes sense. I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah.
So it's a situation, and we're going to talk about it more later as it relates to Chris Jericho later on here. Where so many of the mid-card wrestlers who had potential to be main eventers in WCW hit a wall because people at the top were protective of their spots. Mm-hmm. That's pro wrestling, you know?
True. Yeah.
And if you're not in somebody's good graces or if you're not politically savvy to navigate those waters, odds are there's probably not much chance you're going to break through. And that's a bummer because he had a lot of great talent, including Raven, in that mid-card in WCW in 97, 98, 99.
Killer,
so many great talents.
It was killer.
And, you know, so many of the wrestlers in the cruiserweight division, the best they could really hope for is, all right, I'll get a cruiserweight title reign. Really no chance of any sort of upward mobility past that.
Yeah.
And you had a lot of wrestlers whose ceiling was probably going to be U.S. title reign. And the odds of them cracking into the main event, probably not terribly high.
Or television, yeah.
Yeah, and so you have a wrestler like Raven, who was given plenty of opportunity on WCW TV to showcase his character and get his character over with the crowd.
Yeah.
He had his own faction. They were doing a lot of things right, establishing Raven as a character on WCW TV. And I know it was more so because one of the designers or whatever wanted to put him on the cover of Revenge. He was on the cover of Revenge right there with Hogan and Goldberg.
Yeah. I am the perfect, probably like study of, hey, here's somebody who has never really been into wrestling, but got into it when I started hanging out with your crew. And, I was 18, 19, I guess 18 years old. And it's like, here's this cast of characters right here. What is this guy who's, a college age guy who I think is who they were trying to get?
Yeah.
What appeals to him? Raven was my dude. I saw Raven. I was like, oh, why is he just chilling in the crowd? That's scary. He had an awesome look to him. It was a very contemporary look, the grunge thing. And he rolled with that crew. He treated Stevie Richards like shit. And he had like his own sign guy. He had his own heater, big guy with Lodi. I'm sorry, with
Reese.
Reese, yeah, thank you, Reese. And he was just the coolest guy. And so when I saw him on the cover of Revenge, I was like, this makes sense. He's hanging with Goldberg and Hogan and whoever else was
Nash on that? I think
Nash. I think it was Nash.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Like, he looks good there. He looks like he should have a run. He was like their Bray Wyatt. He was like the kind of their Undertaker to a degree, or sorry, could have been like their Undertaker, but he was definitely kind of like a Bray. And man, I was hooked. I was like, this guy is cool. And then he gets the U.S. title and he loses it immediately.
I mean, he's one of the most captivating promos in the company.
He is, yeah.
Doing
and the promo and the videos that they did.
Yeah, it was, the presentation was on point. The promo delivery was great. It was something different, something that really tied into what Bischoff was trying to do during that era.
Yeah.
Which is try to rip away kind of the over-the-top facade of pro wrestling and present characters that are more grounded.
Mm-hmm, yeah, right.
And in terms of someone that really kind of captured the zeitgeist of the mid to late 90s, I mean, Raven was that guy.
He was it. Yeah.
And if they had actually, gave him a really, really solid push up into the main event, I don't have any doubts it would have been wildly successful.
He could have been the Jake Roberts guy. I mean, it seems kind of clear that he was probably really influenced by him, including the DDT stuff, the finisher. Now Raven, them, and then the whole rich guy thing with Canyon, it just killed it. For me, I was like, oh, this is comedy shit. This isn't good. And those kind of characters are never really easy to crack necessarily. Again, see Bray Wyatt. But man, there was so much potential there. And just something different and interesting. And you could tell Bischoff, liked him to some degree because he put that U.S. title on him.
Yeah. If only for a day.
If only for a day. I wonder when the decision was made. Because they had that pay-per-view. Was it like the next day? They were like, hey, this Goldberg guy, Raven. Sorry, buddy.
I don't know if that was at the point where
who's
they were
who's TV champion at the time? Why couldn't they have done that?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
Anyways, Goldberg should have been Speed champion. Sorry. Anyways, let's go ahead and move on, man. And number 8. NWO 2000. Oh, man. The star power. Hollywood Hogan. No. Sorry, it was not Hogan. Bret Hart.
Yeah.
Kevin Nash.
Yes.
Jeff Jarrett.
Yes.
Scott Steiner.
And according to this Wikipedia, Scott Hall as well.
Okay, Scott Hall. Okay.
Like, I get the idea of hitting the reset button on the NWO. It worked really well for the company before. And I understand you want to have some of the holdovers from the original version. So you bring in Hall and Nash. I get it. But, look, we appreciate Jeff Jarrett now.
Now we do.
In 2000, no. We did not view him as a main event level guy.
No.
And it seemed like, hey, let's reconstitute the NWO to help push Jeff Jarrett.
Seemed like it.
And then Bret Hart's a member, and he seemed like he didn't want to be there. I'm not talking about NWO 2000. I mean WCW.
He never seemed like he wanted to be.
And that was shortly after, the concussion in the Goldberg match. He wasn't a member for very long. It just fell flat on its face. It was not interesting. They just took the logo and made it silver.
They made it was a silver and black at that point.
Yeah, and if it's a situation where they took Hall and Nash and the Attitude, something like Evolution. Hey, we're going to find the next generation of superstars who we think fit into the NWO philosophy.
Yeah, natural
and
born
use Hall and Nash to get, like some newcomers over, some young up and coming talent over. Hey, now you're onto something.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But to bring him back as a nostalgia act to get Jeff Jarrett up to the main event level,
Let me ask you something. Do you remember this? I'm looking at the Wikipedia entry. After the finger, I mean, you might have already seen this, so you might be aware of this. When the finger poke of doom happened, and they rejoined the Wolfpack in Hollywood. Do you remember what that label was?
Because they wore, like, the Wolfpack still wore the Wolfpack shirts, and Hogan's crew still wore the original shirts.
I think they made shirts that were black shirts, white and red. I think
because in the latest episode of Who Killed WCW, they have a quick shot of everybody. Nash still has the Wolfpack shirt on, so maybe it was that night.
That might have been that night. But according to this, they all got back together under the label NWO Elite.
I don't remember that.
The NWO was all elite, Larson. Yeah, I'll have to double check, but my memory says my memory is telling me there was the white NWO, but it had a red trim around it on a black shirt. I got to double check that. In any event, we're wildly off course right now. We're talking about NWO 2000. Yeah, I don't know if there's any way, like the level of talent was good. The amount of checked outness was off the charts, except for Jeff Jarrett. And therein lied the problem. I think there was probably a way you could have done this properly, but yeah. I don't know. I honestly don't know how that could have been the case. But the talent there, you can't deny the talent could have been. There could have been something. Maybe if at that point, because it's 2000, you have Russo running amok, Natural Born Thrillers are doing their thing, and the No Country for Old Men storyline plays out, where it's like, you got to form this group of NWO 2000. 2000's a terrible name, anyways. They should never.
Terrible.
Because it dates
terrible.
Immediately.
Awful. So I have a picture here. This is from a thumbnail for YouTube. So NWO Wolfpack Elite, and Nash and Hogan are wearing Wolfpack shirts.
Okay.
Just Wolfpack shirts.
All right.
And this is 3 weeks after Finger Poke of Doom.
Okay. All right. Hey, maybe you're right then. Man.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Anyways, NWO 2000, terrible idea as executed. Again, I think that's another option you mentioned, the No Country for Old Men route, where you got this influx of new talent in WCW, and Hall and Nash are worried that, hey, maybe this business has passed us by, but we don't think so.
So many favored nations clauses.
We're going to get the band back together. Just reference Blues Brothers 2000, just on the nose,
I think, yeah, they wear the sunglasses and the hats and
why not?
And the suits. This main event mafia territory. I kind of feel like towards the later days, Nash and DDP created a tag team called the Insiders.
Mm-hmm.
Shit was getting really weird. And I think that was kind of a No Country for Old Men type thing. Like, they're the guys who were just phoning it in. Because, everybody else, in my opinion, that's No Country for Old Men right there. Tommy Lee Jones started phoning it in.
This episode of Going in Raw is sponsored by BetterHelp Steve. I look at the calendar, and it's June already. Where's the year gone?
Oh, it's flown by.
We're basically halfway through 2024, and with life just moving so fast, it's important to take the time to celebrate your wins and make, the adjustments you need for the rest of the year. And therapy can help you track your progress and set goals for the rest of 2024 and beyond.
That's right. And if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. BetterHelp is completely online and designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited for your schedule. All you got to do to get started is fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge.
You know, and I've spoken about this plenty of times on the show. Back in my mid-20s, I was dealing with severe anxiety, and going to therapy allowed me to take a moment and learn the skills I needed to better cope with my anxiety and set me on the path to hopefully becoming a better Larson. So take a moment. Visit BetterHelp.com/raw today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/raw.
All right, man, let's go ahead and proceed with number 7.
7.
The finish to Starrcade 1997. Again, Larson, putting myself, Steve here, old man Steve here, No Country for Old Man Steve here, and putting him in the shoes of 18-year-old Steve here.
Yeah.
And, at that point, it would have been 19 at that point. And being so hyped for Hogan versus Sting, the culmination of 18 months of storylines coming together in this one December pay-per-view, and then watching Bret Hart come out after the referee clearly did a normal pin where Hulk
Normal
Hogan,
cadence.
normal cadence, pinned Sting 1, 2, 3. To me, I'll be honest, at the time I thought it was fine. I was like, oh yeah, it must have been a fast count if this Bret Hart guy is be believed.
Says so, yes.
People seem to like this guy. He seems honest. And but yeah, apparently it caused quite the firestorm in wrestling circles at the time, so much so that people were like, "Oh, what a crap ending." I kind of feel like it had more to do with the follow-up, to be honest with you, because it kind of no-sold all that stuff. But yeah, the finish of Starrcade, well known now as a big hiccup in the story of WCW.
And it's a simple thing where you build the story for 18 months, and this is the conclusion that has to happen. It has to be Sting winning clean for your audience to be satisfied with the time they've invested in the story that you've been telling.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard the excuses from Bischoff. We've heard the excuses from Hogan as to why they didn't think it was the right time to do a clean finish to this match.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
But here's the thing. It felt like up to this point, things were going great in WCW. From a creative standpoint, most of what they were doing was pretty satisfying. Most, not all, most.
Mm-hmm.
They had spent a year and a half telling the story that, for the most part, had been pretty intriguing.
Yeah.
Maybe at times a bit redundant, a bit monotonous. But all the same, I think a lot of people, ourselves included, were invested in it.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And to not follow through with the planned finish for whatever nebulous reasons that Hogan and or Bischoff might have, it definitely tainted the conclusion of that story. And the reason this potentially isn't higher on the list is because this is something that, with decent creative, you could have moved past pretty easily.
Oh, yeah, I thought
it's
that
a hiccup.
They should have, yeah.
Yeah, and then the way they handled it was absolutely the wrong way to handle it. You have Hogan beat the hell out of Sting at Super Brawl, the following pay-per-view, for 20 minutes, only for Macho Man to help Sting get the win. And then shortly thereafter, Macho Man beat Sting for the belt.
Yeah, Hogan was kind of the reason for at least this drop ball, obviously. Yeah. And it's not even necessarily, intimidating Nick Patrick, NWO ref, into the non-fast count. It's the creative control clause where he didn't want to lose to Sting clean. And he wasn't going to do it the next month either. And that was the big problem, because it's like, no, Sting should be at your level. There needs to be some give and take, man.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, I agree with everything you said. That they really could have, and I think should have. I remember the next night when they're like, oh, we're going to vacate the title. I'm like, the fuck? Why would you do that? That's stupid. If you're going to do a rematch, fine. Just have Sting beat the guy. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I don't know. It was pretty ridiculous. I'm watching the next episode, and you're right. They're all wearing Wolfpack except for the C Team guys. They're all wearing black and white, but the NWO doesn't even come out till like an hour into the show. The first 20 minutes is like Flair ranting.
Oh, goodness.
Well,
Fire
10
me. You
minutes
can't
in.
fire me.
Then he had a Perry Saturn DDP match. No, oh, Jericho. Oh, Jericho. Jericho's cool. Yeah. Apparently they had like a big promo on Thunder. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Number 6.
6.
The LWO. So you had NWO Hollywood, NWO Wolfpack, NWO Elite. In there, you had the LWO, the Latino World Order. Now, to a degree, it was kind of played up in like, I remember like, I think there was this one like luchador heavy battle royal match that Big Show came in one time. I forget when it was, like 97 or something. Peak Big Show, and just destroyed everybody. So at certain times, even though they would use the luchadors to put on these really fantastic matches and get people in, sometimes they would treat them as like fodder for some of the other bigger acts in the company. And the LWO, at first, it was like, oh, this is kind of cool. They're doing the strength in numbers thing. It's like, you know, individually, they might not be booked as strong as some of these bigger names, but as a group, these guys will have each other back. They can be a major player here. And unfortunately, I think if I'm not mistaken, Eddie Guerrero had like an injury, and that took him out of the
car
LWO.
accident in early 1999. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And you know, although they had a ton of numbers, evidently they didn't have somebody. I don't know why they just didn't have Ray take over or whatever. But Eddie was a very strong personality. Maybe it all hinged on him. I'm kind of curious what they could have done with the LWO. They could have done a number of things, but what the original plan was, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. Here on the Wikipedia entry for LWO, it says after the car accident. So it was 3 days later. So Eddie was in the car accident on January 1st, 99, and then 3 days later, two factions of New World Order got back together. And then it says here, before long, various members of the LWO were found lying unconscious backstage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's horrible. So it was like a couple months.
It looks like they feuded with the NWO for a spell until it all kind of just came to an end, until Eddie came back.
You know what else happened I'm watching it right now, on the episode after the finger poke of doom?
Huh.
I just texted you a picture of it. It's Lex Luger telling Rey Mysterio, "You were not Wolfpack NWO."
Yeah.
Even though clearly he's just wearing an LWO shirt.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, man. Anyways, let's move on to number 5.
5.
A Jericho Goldberg feud. So long before Jericho was absolutely crushing the momentum of many young stars in AEW.
Yeah.
He was actually pretty beloved. And it goes back all the way to 1997 at least. I mean, earlier, people were following him in ECW and in the territories. But in 1997, and then especially in 1998, Chris Jericho was getting over with fans despite his booking, like strictly in the cruiserweight division. I think maybe he flirted with the TV title, maybe, but I don't think so. And he wanted.
He did.
Oh, he did. Okay.
Yeah.
And he wanted a feud with the young Goldberg, who was on the come up. And according to Jericho, he was like, hey, have this guy kill me, but we can do some cool stuff here because I'm getting over. Now, I think personally, I kind of feel like Jericho was at the point where they really would have risked people turning on Goldberg for Jericho because Jericho was so entertaining. But he was doing the Ralphus thing.
Oh, that was so good.
It was so good. And they put the kibosh on it. I think they did one thing where Goldberg might have speared Jericho.
That might have been the most of it, yeah.
I think, yeah, maybe like on the ramp or something.
I mean, this is another situation where you had all this mid-card talent that was really good that could never really get past a certain point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And even though Jericho was, maybe it was a situation where it probably was, where they were afraid that Jericho was going to overshadow, potentially, Goldberg. Maybe. Because Jericho was getting super over. I know Goldberg was probably one of, if not the most popular wrestlers in the entire company by that point, or on the way there.
Yeah.
But for Jericho to say, I'll get in a feud with this guy, and he could destroy me on pay-per-view, and for the company, whether it's Bischoff, whoever, saying no, I mean, it could have been a situation where obviously it would have been huge for Goldberg because Jericho was was on the rise as a young talent, but it'd been good for Jericho to be mixing it up with main eventers.
Yeah.
And for them all to just be like, nope, not going to happen. And apparently it was one of the major reasons because he realized I'm never getting past a certain point here.
Yeah. And of course, WWE, they used him at the outset, not great, although he won I think, Intercontinental pretty quickly. But eventually, obviously, he had a legendary run in WWE.
Eventually, he did get his match with Goldberg. It happened to be backstage, though.
Yeah, that's right, in 2003. That's true. Yeah, it's funny because I'm looking at this and I'm like, didn't he have his own, like, sort of version of Goldberg? Yeah, he totally had his own Goldberg lookalike guy. And then, in fact, it was, Goldberg just attacked him. He speared him during a promo. And they'd never had an actual match in WCW. Yeah.
It felt like that period of time where Jericho, and I think that's probably the case, he would get 5 minutes, and he would just go out there and do whatever he wanted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So wait, do they have an actual match? They had a match in Bad Blood? Oh, yeah, look at that.
WWE?
I think so. Let me double check.
Yeah, they actually had a match, I believe.
Okay, yeah, they did. Okay. That's fun. That's cool. Anyways, let's go ahead and move on, Larson. Number 4. The Four Horsemen. Hey, I like what you did there. Look at that. Good job. Yeah, man. So,
how many times did the Horsemen get utterly annihilated by the NWO?
The Four Horsemen were the Baron Corbin of WCW. After 1996-97, their sole purpose was to be humiliated. As much as people wanted to be in the NWO as how much people probably didn't want to be in the Four Horsemen except for Ric Flair. Arn Anderson retired probably too early because he was like, this is going nowhere. This really sucks. We're getting killed. They went to North Carolina and got murdered by the NWO there. Bischoff didn't give a fuck. He was like, you guys are the old... In Bischoff's defense on this one, when I saw the Horsemen, I was like, oh, what a bunch of old losers. Like, their T-shirts were lame.
Yeah.
Like, the theme song was kind of cool, but not nearly as cool as what the NWO had.
Oh, obviously not. No.
And then when they came out and made fun of them, I laughed. I thought that was funny.
But if you want to have a group to make some serious effort to counter the strength of the NWO, you have the legacy faction right there.
Right there.
There's a story there to tell.
And
dude, I think the furthest up the NWO pecking order that Flair got to feuding with was 6.
Yeah.
That I recall. Maybe he had a feud with Hogan when Hogan was champion as Hollywood Hogan. I don't recall, but I remember he feuded with 6.
Isn't that weird? I feel like Flair and Hogan had a shitload of matches, but never involving the NWO. I could be totally wrong about that.
Same.
But yeah, no, dude, it's crazy. And especially when you factor in that NWO for that, peak period, their main nemesis was Sting. And then Sting would have to align with the Four Horsemen, people who had stabbed him in the back multiple times.
There's interesting stuff there.
There's so many good stories. I remember Hennig came in. I was like, who's this guy? Everybody seems to like him. I didn't know he was Mr. Perfect because I didn't watch WWE. And I was like, but everybody seems to like him. And then, within a week or two, he turned on the NWO.
Oh, so yeah, Hollywood Hogan Flair feuded in '99.
Oh, did they? Okay.
Yeah.
When in '99?
Early.
Oh, was it? Okay. Well, yeah, I guess so, because right now it's going Flair is a big deal right now, and I'm looking at this thing still. Mid-January, Flair's a big deal, so I guess it's not surprising that they're
it's early '99. So after I kind of remember that now. Hogan got the belt back. This is shortly after Finger Poke of Doom.
Okay. Oh yeah, here we go. Yeah, February 1st, '99. I see Flair and Scott Hall in some sort of promo deal. There you go. Okay.
So yeah, they had a match at Super Brawl. And then, Flair actually beat Hogan for the title at Uncensored 99.
Oh, Flair beat Hogan for the title at Uncensored 99.
In a steel cage match.
Oh, look at that. Wow.
So look at that. Proven wrong.
So after all that, Ric Flair won the title off Hogan?
Well, the original plan, as, was supposed to be the entirety of the NWO feuding with Goldberg.
Yeah, instead they, yeah.
So I guess after he put his hand through the car window and tore up his wrist, they had to pivot to Ric Flair.
I don't know what year this was. Maybe it was 99. What year was it that Ric Flair, the fire me, you can't fire me thing, when like Bischoff tried to fire him?
So it was after the...
He came back hot.
It was after they started doing Thunder. Because the whole thing was that Bischoff said that Flair no-showed an episode of Thunder, but Flair was going to one of his kids' wrestling tournaments or something like that.
Gotcha. Okay. Well,
so I can give you the date here in a moment.
Is it June 14th, 1999? Because I see a fired up Flair on a promo. I don't think it's this
April.
one.
Well, April 98 here says, actually. Oh, that makes sense. That is Thunder. Yeah, that is Thunder. So that was his last appearance. And then Flair had a match against Bischoff at Starrcade 98.
Terrible.
Which Bischoff won.
Well, he knew karate. Anyways, let's go ahead and move it. Yeah, they did the Horseman nasty, man. They really, that could have been so good. Boy, that could have been so good. Anyways, let's move on to number 3.
3.
Ending Goldberg's streak.
It's not so much. Well, the ball drop is how they ended it, not whether to end it or not. Obviously,
you agree with Kevin Nash that 5 months is too long to have the title?
No, not necessarily.
Neither do I.
I mean, no, I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that. And maybe we wouldn't be talking about this had Goldberg not suffered that injury and their plan to have this reconstituted NWO feuding with Goldberg to help Goldberg get over, in theory, would have taken Goldberg to another level.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But given what happened at the Finger Poke of Doom, the instigating incident of all of this, it doesn't give us me at least, much hope that they had a decent plan put in place that helped Goldberg get over even more.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, the cattle prod situation, let me ask this. Do you remember this? This episode is all just us remembering, or us testing.
Trying to remember, yes.
Yeah. When they did the cattle prod, was there a cheesy sound effect with it?
I think you just heard the cattle prod itself.
Was it the kind of thing? Okay.
I think so.
Anyways, yeah, I remember that being cheesy and confusing. I don't know that I agree that it should have been a clean finish. I don't think Kevin, like, if you think nobody ever clean finished against Austin in 98, like they found clever ways to get the title off him, but it never was like, oh, this is an eye roll,
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like there was probably a much better way to resolve the streak situation. Those are hard. That's why I don't like streaks, man. They're just too hard.
You book yourself into a corner.
You
so
really
easily.
do.
I had a thought, and we can maybe save a longer discussion for later on. Because we had, in our review of episode 2 of Who Killed WCW, is up right now. Did it day after it aired. I put forward an idea about how they could have reformed the NWO in a more organic way as opposed to doing Finger Poke of Doom. But what if rather than the NWO reforming, Goldberg had to contend with 2 factions of the NWO.
Oh, ooh.
So you still had Hogan feuding with Nash. You had Nash feuding with Goldberg. Hogan inserting himself in that feud.
Yeah.
So Goldberg's getting it from 2 different directions.
Oh, man, I kind of like that. That's cool.
And then so you work in the actual NWO Civil War aspect and Goldberg.
That's a cool idea. I mean, dude, tell me that's not a pay-per-view. It's a triple threat. Hogan, Nash, and Goldberg.
I know.
Oh, man. And then they just finger poke it there.
Yeah, exactly.
They throw Goldberg out and then finger poke it. Everybody's like, the fuck is this?
They go 10 minutes of like a wrestling match and they throw Goldberg out and then do that.
Let's move on to number 2. Everything that Bret Hart did in WCW.
With maybe the exception
except for
of
the El Dandy promo.
Well, let's say that whenever he talked about his cat and the match
Bill
he
Goldberg
and Benoit had in memory of Owen Hart. Those are like the highlights of Bret Hart's run in WCW.
Insisting on using the name Bill Goldberg, not just Goldberg. Bill Goldberg.
But even, after the Montreal screw job, as soon as Bret's contract is up, you have him on TV in a substantial role. Mm-hmm. People are talking about that. Mm-hmm. You don't have him be the guest enforcer, whatever he's supposed to be at Starrcade. You have him in a substantial, because he comes out there telling Nick Patrick he counted fast, and he didn't look like an asshole.
Wasn't he like the special guest ref for special enforcer for the Bischoff match?
Yeah, I think that's right.
That's horrible.
It's awful. You
That
have him
is
in a
so
substantial, impactful role. He just came out of like one of the most prominent news stories of wrestling in who knows how long after the screw job, and he comes in with a whimper?
Put somebody in the sharpshooter.
Immediately.
That's the first thing he does. Yeah. They're like, oh, God, the cameras are backstage. We got to get back there. And then it's just he's got somebody in a sharpshooter.
It's like it happens like 5 times during that first episode of Nitro he's on. It's Hogan, it's Bischoff, Flair, why not? It's everybody. Steiner, sure. Anybody he comes upon, guess what? You're getting a sharpshooter.
Oh, but then he tries it on Sting, and Sting puts him in the Scorpion Deathlock.
And they just do the thing where they keep on reversing the sharpshooter and the Scorpion Deathlock, and just around and around and around.
Exactly.
But basically everything they had Brett doing, you hear him talk about it, he's not going to disagree with this point. It's kind of crap.
Stupid. Yeah, they're all stupid. Idiots, dummies.
Bischoff
big dummies.
didn't know wrestling.
Bad ideas.
What you said, his dog knows more about wrestling than Bischoff does.
I think so, yeah.
Not a fan of Eric Bischoff. Did you see that clip where he's doing an interview at some show and apparently Bischoff's like basically off camera signing autographs and he's saying that Bischoff didn't know anything about pro wrestling?
I haven't. That sounds amazing.
It's pretty funny.
That sounds great. That sounds awesome.
But like he's talking to the interviewer, but he's also kind of looking over the interviewer's shoulder. I wonder if he's looking at Bischoff while he's saying it.
Dude, I honestly just think that he's just trolling these days.
It kind of feels that way.
Like everything in the Who Killed WCW doc just seems like he is fucking trolling the entire time. Yeah, dude, you're right though. Like, man, you get your hands on Bret Hart, you use him in a major way, and it was really asinine that they didn't. And I wonder, you got to wonder, I understand that like he's coming off the Montreal screw job. I wonder what ratio of disappointment was sort of was sort of responsible for his headspace, because on one end he had the Montreal screw job. That should light a fire under your ass. Like, I'm going to go to fucking WCW and show these guys what, but then like he gets there and he gets like a fax from Eric Bischoff. Hey, you're going to be the guest enforcer for my match against Larry Legend, against Larry Zabisco.
Yeah, it's Starrcade 97.
What the fuck? You're like, where's his creative control clause? Couldn't he have been like, no. Just
that's it. No.
I'm gonna go. How about I sharpshooter Hulk Hogan? Yeah. How about that?
I know.
So
it's like they had so much potential, and Bischoff freely admits that they weren't good at maintaining momentum.
Yeah.
The possibility of bringing Bret Hart in after the screw job and the momentum that could have given the company, and they pissed it all away immediately.
Yeah,
immediately.
Pixelate a title.
Something.
Pixelate a title, man.
Pixelated title? Sure.
Drop it in the bill. Just light it on fire.
Hey, how about this? What if Bret Hart was the real world's champion?
Yeah. Oh, dude, he spray paints it. Where's my real world's champion?
He takes his Winged Eagle WWE title and spray paints.
And he spray paints it like CM Punk did with the real world's champion.
He comes to WCW. I'm the real world champion.
I'm like Cody with this thing. Have you noticed to this day, Cody is still like trying to figure out how to hold the title?
I know. He never wears it. Outside of making his entrance,
No, he doesn't, yeah.
As a wrestler. But if he's coming out in his suit, he doesn't wear it.
Carries it around with him. Anyways, let's go ahead and move on to number one. You've already brought it up to a degree. NWO Wolfpack, NWO Hollywood Civil War. The Civil War of the NWO is the biggest storyline in pro wrestling in the 90s up to that point. And they had two factions. There was the Hollywood one, which nobody liked. And then there was the cool Wolfpack one, which everybody liked, because it had Lex Luger, Conan, Sting, Kevin Nash. Like, honestly, it's a group that shouldn't have worked, but it really, really did.
It did. It
you
really
know why?
did.
They had the coolest theme song. That's why.
They did have the coolest theme song. The only member missing from Wolfpack. It would have been great to have Scott Hall.
I know. What a drop ball that is.
Yeah, and to see their feud end in the finger poke of doom, it just felt like money left on the table.
Big time.
You know, it felt like massive amounts of money left on the table.
Yeah.
And whether it's something like I offered earlier, we have a three-way thing with Hogan, Nash, and Goldberg.
Yeah.
You just you split Goldberg away from Nash and have Nash feud with Hogan, whatever the case may be. You know, with the world title comes prestige, it comes power.
Yeah.
And if the NWO's MO was power, then having Nash and Hogan feud over the belt makes a lot of sense.
It does.
Within the context of the NWO Civil War, and we just never got it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that could have been really something special. I wonder if like the only problem with that would have been dealing with Hogan. Like, you know what I mean? I wonder how, you got to ask yourself how many like, you know, storylines were pitched and just shot down because the old doesn't work for me, brother.
I don't know. I mean, because as Bischoff told it in the latest episode, Hogan called him up and said, "Hey, I'm going to drop the title to Goldberg clean."
Yeah.
You know, if it kind of seemed like if Hogan thought there was money in a program, he would lose. Ultimately, he want to win, but if he thought there was money to be made, he seemed fine doing business, maybe on his terms.
He dropped it to Luger in the torture rack.
Yeah.
Got back a week later.
Yeah, he got back really quick.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, and obvious, I would think that Nash and Hogan probably had a pretty decent relationship. Seems like they still do for the most part.
Yeah.
And if Hogan might be willing to do business with anybody, maybe it would be Nash. And who say they couldn't trade the belt back and forth a couple times?
Yeah. Yeah. No, man, I agree. That once they lost that momentum, it's a shame that they really didn't understand, even watching the documentary, they really did not understand why they got to where they went. When they started talking about, oh yeah, we couldn't compete with WWF because they could show boobies. I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't remember, like WCW didn't do that shit until like 2001 or 2000 or something.
Russo came over.
When Russo came along, and then it got terrible.
Yeah. No,
So,
I mean, like
yeah.
the 96, 97 WCW was really about breaking down the facade of pro wrestling and basing their characters more on reality than some over-the-top gimmick.
Yeah.
And then the stories that arise from that. That's when WCW was at its best.
Yep, absolutely.
And to think they had to challenge WB on their own, on WB's terms, as opposed to focusing on what they used to do best, it was kind of, I mean, we saw that with AEW for a spell in 2013. It felt like they were really trying to be WB light, and it wasn't working.
Yeah.
And you can argue whether going back to kind of basics for them has been a net positive or not, but at least the company has vision now. Where before that, it seemed like they were just trying anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Anyways, let us know where you guys think WCW dropped the ball. Give us some of your favorite WCW memories. You know, like this whole thing, it's funny because this whole thing really is like, WCW got me into wrestling, and there was so much cool shit going on there. I don't know if it ever would have mattered if at the end of the day it was just that one dude at Time Warner who was like, no, fuck you, I don't want wrestling. Everybody there at Time Warner seemed to not want them around.
Yeah.
Or AOL Time Warner, I guess. And that, you know, at the end of the day, that would have crushed them. But you got to think, if they were able to fire on all cylinders for like 2 more years,
Yeah, no.
if anything would have been different, if Bischoff would have been able to take that company and sell it to some, or, you know, purchase it and get some TV spot, if more networks or channels would have been champing at the bit to get WCW, maybe Vince wouldn't have ended up with it.
Yeah. Hardly possible.
That's going to do it for the show today. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Appreciate it. Till next time, we'll see you guys around.
Goodbye.